A long time ago, John F. Kennedy said that we need to ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I don't think anybody's asking either of those questions right now. I think a lot of people in politics, a lot of people barely connected to politics, and a lot of people that are not even involved in politics at all are asking a different question entirely. They're saying, what kind of special benefits can I get from the government? And I think that we as a group need to be asking a question, the opposite question. Not what kind of benefits can I get, what type of benefits can I stop other interests from getting? How can I stop other people from defrauding the taxpayers? I think that most fundamentally, though, we need to recognize that there are a lot of people who disagree with us emotionally. I see a lot of people in this room, sure, from the time they were little kids were rugged individualists, and a lot of people aren't that way. But when you talk policy with people, and when you talk policy in a respectful way, and when you treat those people like individuals, and even if they happen to have the word socialist written across their shirt, if you talk to them honestly, I bet you're going to find that most people are going to agree with you on about 99% of things. And the one or two things that they disagree with you about, they're not really going to be that important. They're going to be small issues that just don't matter. A recent poll showed that 44% of Americans consider themselves to be fiscally conservative and socially liberal, in other words, libertarian. It used the word libertarian right on the poll. Now, I know that a couple people in this room are saying, oh my God, we're at 44%, that's 6% away from 50, and that's because you haven't really considered what's actually happening here. That remaining 56% is split between people who are entirely conservative and entirely liberal, and the few people who are the reverse of us, the statists, although there are not that many of those. We're already ahead. We are miles ahead. We just need to get people to actually act. And that's like the hardest thing. I think part of it is we need to work on not just our image, but our actions. Libertarians love to wear dollar sign ties and dollar sign shirts and dollar sign pins as if the most libertarian act in the world is profit. And I disagree with that. I'm a small business owner and I believe in profit, believe me. But I don't think it's the ultimate act of libertarianism. I think one ultimate act of libertarianism is charity. Because with charity, we show that not, if we got rid of this, then there would one day, blah, 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 be some kind of a thing that would replace these government services. We're showing that we don't need them right now because we can already do better without them. That we as people don't need some third external force curbing some deep innate evil that we have, that we ourselves can provide all those other things. But I think to really talk about the ultimate act of libertarianism is something that we have already seen in U.S. history. We've seen with the Founding Fathers, who, when they were just a group of people who were facing the most powerful government, their own government, the most powerful army ever, decided they were going to stand and fight it, that they were going to put all of their personal concerns aside and they were going to fight. Thomas Jefferson said that he was studying politics and war, so that one day his children could study mathematics and philosophy. I think that's the real act of libertarianism. And I think that's what those of us in this room are willing to do. And I think that's what we need to get those of us who we know, and those of us who are almost there, who just are this far away from doing, that's what we need to do. Create that ultimate sacrifice where we say, no matter what, I'm going to get this done. No matter what it takes, no matter what the personal sacrifices are, I'm going to make this happen. Thank you.
Your experience with that?
I think at a very deep level, a lot of people are fundamentally kind of utilitarian, which means that if you really want to get people to change, you have to point out something that is just so gut-wrenchingly awful and is such a direct consequence of the way things are done. In education, I like to talk about something called rubber rooms, which in New York City are basically rooms that they put the teachers that they think are not fit for teaching, not safe to keep around students, in these special rooms where they just basically play video games and watch TV and surf the net and then have soft drinks all day. And the reason that they're not just fired is because the union laws were so impossible to deal with in New York that they basically, they have that. I mean, and when I start talking about that and connect that with, the idea of either using vouchers or other types of subsidies to create a market-based educational, it's always things like that. If you can find something that really works. But the most fundamental thing is if you're talking to somebody and you're viewing that person as, just another number, or just somebody, that you don't really, that you're just trying to convert, it's not going to happen. Because people can sense, do you care about this person? Do you want this person to become a libertarian? Not so that, the movement can grow, but so that he can be a more enlightened and happier person. Now, obviously, as a teacher, this is kind of what I do all day with math, so it's a little bit easier to do with liberty, but it's really about connecting with people, and I think it's really about giving them concrete examples that they can follow and understand about what the problems are with the current system. For me, it was in high school. I was like, it'd be awesome if there was a party that was kind of like the Democrats and social thing, and kind of like the Republicans. This is where when I kind of believed what they were saying was what they said and what they were going to do was kind of the same. Kind of like the Republican Party economically. And a friend of mine was like, there already is that thing. It's called libertarians. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe that there was something like that awesome in the world. It just blew my mind. So that was the moment for me. It was like a yearning for something. And I think there's a lot of people who are yearning for that. And just us getting our name out there and making it clear that this thing does exist and it's a viable option is what we need to do.
I've seen
people. There's this episode of King of the Hill that really I think sums it up pretty well. The character Luann, who's kind of a comic character, is deciding who to vote for. And she looks at Carrie and is like, "Oh, he's handsome," and she kind of giggles, and the audience entirely laughs. The entire audience is obviously not laughing with her; they're laughing at her. I think that people know when they're being manipulated, and people know when they're being lied to, and when people get sort of a direct and honest answer at whatever they ask, even if it's something kind of off the cuff and strange, they might be a little comfortable at first, but in the long term, that's what's going to win people's respect. I think it's just answering every question and as honestly as possible and presenting our views as honestly as we can. I think is really what we need to do. I think that in the long run, ideally, our education system should be like, we're sitting in a restaurant right now. You can go to a French restaurant, a Thai restaurant, or whatever kind of restaurant you want to and get excellent food in America. And it's not coming from the government. I don't think that the state is well equipped to deal with direct education. I think that in the short term, we should maintain that option and there should be a gradual transition. I don't think that we should try to create fear and pandemonium by creating instantaneous switch. But I think that the immediate thing that we need to be working on in terms of education is creating vouchers and direct subsidies that allow private sector, the people who work in the private sector, many of whom actually until a few months ago were my sworn enemies, so they were my competitors. I'm like, I hope that guy goes out of business so I can take, his entire clientele. But now that I'm seeing them as basically part of the solution, I think that there are a lot of really smart people working in education in the private sector who have no desire to be part of bureaucracy, who really want to teach and want to be paid for, sure. But there's a lot of people out there. I mean, if you can go to the very exact cities where there's supposedly a shortage of math teachers, and you can go to Craigslist in those cities and just look at how many highly qualified math tutors you'll find, and that really tells you that it's not just that the private sector is better for students, which it obviously is, but it's also better for teachers, and there's this huge desire to get involved in that aspect. So, long story short, I mean, I don't think that the state's particularly well equipped to do education. I think that something that nuance isn't as best done by individuals. To a large extent, I don't know that that's happening intentionally, but the level of reading, the level of critical thinking skills, the level of math that's relevant to the kind of economic type analysis I was talking about earlier is absolutely being eroded. And as I mentioned at the beginning, that's the most dangerous thing you can have in a democracy. An uneducated citizenry it's unsafe. It is the biggest problem you can possibly have. And I do think that one of the things that's majorly suffering is critical thinking skills, both in terms of reading and in terms of sort of mathematical